The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church, casting a mosaic of colors across the pews. Emily Harper sat in her wheelchair at the altar, her white gown pooling around her like a soft cloud. Her hands trembled, not from nerves about the vow she was ready to take, but from the weight of the moment. The organ hummed softly, and the scent of lilies filled the air. Friends and family filled the pews, their whispers a gentle murmur of anticipation. Emily's heart swelled with hope. Today was supposed to be the day she'd dreamed of since she was a little girl, spinning in her backyard, imagining a love that saw her for who she was, not for the accident that had taken her ability to walk at 16. Her fiancé, James, stood beside her, handsome in his tailored suit, his smile tight. She'd noticed that tightness before, in moments when he thought no one was watching. But she brushed it off. Love was complex, she told herself. He'd proposed, hadn't he? He'd chosen her, despite the whispers from his family, the sidelong glances from his friends. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away, adjusting his tie instead. Her chest tightened, but she smiled, willing the moment to be perfect. The priest cleared his throat, his voice warm as he began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Emily's eyes locked on James, searching for the spark she'd seen when they first met at the community center, where she taught art classes. He'd been a volunteer, charming and attentive, his laughter filling the room as he helped her set up easels. She'd fallen for his easy confidence, the way he seemed to see past her wheelchair to the woman who loved painting sunsets and laughing at bad puns. But now, as the priest's words echoed, James's gaze darted to the floor, his jaw clenched. Do you, James Michael Carter, take Emily Grace Harper to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for as long as you both shall live? The church fell silent. Emily's breath caught. James's hands flexed at his sides, and he looked at her, not with love, but with something cold, something that made her stomach twist. He stepped back, his polished shoes scuffing the floor. I can't, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Emily's mother, seated in the front row, clutched her purse, her face paling. Emily's best friend, Sarah, gripped the armrest of her pew, her eyes wide with disbelief. What? Emily's voice was small, fragile, like glass about to shatter. James ran a hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. I'm sorry, Emily. I thought I could do this, but I can't. It's too much. Your condition, the chair, the future, it's not what I signed up for. The words hit like a physical blow. Emily's hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her knuckles whitening. The church spun around her, the colors of the stained glass blurring into a kaleidoscope of pain. She wanted to scream, to demand why he'd waited until this moment, but her throat closed, trapping her voice. James, please, she managed, her eyes burning. You said you loved me. He shook his head, stepping farther back, his face a mask of guilt and resolve. I thought I did, but I can't live like this. I'm sorry. The priest stood frozen, his prayer book dangling in his hands. Emily's mother rose, her voice sharp. James Carter, you coward. Mom, don't, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. She couldn't look at the faces in the pews, couldn't bear the pity, the shock, the whispers. Her dreams, her trust, her heart, they crumbled in that moment, leaving her exposed, raw. James turned and walked down the aisle, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. The heavy oak doors creaked as he pushed through them, and then he was gone. The organist, unsure what to do, let the last note fade into dissonance. Emily sat alone at the altar, her gown pristine, her heart in pieces. Sarah rushed to her side, kneeling beside the wheelchair. I'm here. You're okay. You're going to be okay. But Emily didn't feel okay. She felt like the little girl who'd woken up in a hospital bed after the car accident, her legs unresponsive, her world forever changed. She'd fought to rebuild her life, to find joy in her art, her teaching, her independence. She believed James saw that strength, that he loved her for it. Now, she wondered if anyone ever would. The guests shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, others staring. Emily's mother approached, her face a mix of fury and heartbreak. But before she could speak, the church doors swung open again. Every head turned. A man stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the sunlight. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair slightly tousled, as if he'd been rushing. He wore a simple navy suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. In his hand was a single sunflower, its bright petals stark against the muted tones of the church. Who's that? Sarah whispered, her hand still on Emily's arm. Emily squinted, her heart still raw. She didn't recognize him at first, but something about the way he moved, purposeful, unhurried, stirred a memory. The man stepped forward, his shoes clicking softly on the stone floor. Whispers followed him, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes, a deep hazel, locked on Emily. "Emily Harper," he said, his voice clear, carrying across the church. "I'm sorry I'm late." The crowd murmured. Emily's mother frowned, leaning toward Sarah. "Is that?" Emily's mind raced. She knew that voice, those eyes. It couldn't be. Not here, not now. "Lucas," she said, her voice barely audible. He smiled, a warm, unguarded smile that cut through the fog of her pain. Lucas Bennett. The boy who'd lived next door when they were kids, who'd spent summers building forts with her in the backyard, who'd sat with her in the hospital after the accident, reading her comic books until she laughed again. The boy who'd moved away at 17, promising to keep in touch, but life had pulled them apart, college, careers, continents. She hadn't seen him in over a decade, though she'd heard he'd become a doctor, working overseas with a humanitarian organization. He reached the altar, stopping a few feet from her. The sunflower twirled in his fingers. "I heard you were getting married," he said, his tone light but his eyes serious. "I wasn't going to come, but I couldn't stay away." Emily's breath hitched. "Why are you here, Lucas?" He glanced at the empty space where James had stood, then back at her. "Because I made a promise a long time ago to be there when you needed me. And it looks like I'm just in time." The crowd buzzed, some guests leaning forward, others exchanging glances. The priest cleared his throat, clearly unsure how to proceed. Emily's mother stepped closer, her voice low. "Emily, do you know this man?" "Yes," Emily said, her eyes never leaving Lucas. "I do." Lucas knelt beside her wheelchair, bringing himself to her level. "I know this isn't how you pictured today," he said softly, so only she could hear. "But you don't deserve what just happened. You deserve someone who sees you, the real you. The girl who painted murals on her bedroom walls, who laughed at my terrible jokes, who never let anything stop her. Not then, not now." Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks, but they weren't the same tears she'd shed moments ago. These were different, warmer, lighter, like something inside her was waking up. "Lucas, why now? After all these years?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I've been running from a lot of things, Em. My own fears, my own mistakes. I spent years working in places where I thought I could make a difference, but I never forgot you. When I heard about your wedding, I had to see you. I had to know you were happy. And when I walked in and saw what happened," he shook his head, his voice thick. "I couldn't let you think you're anything less than extraordinary." Sarah squeezed Emily's hand, her eyes glistening. "Em, he's right. You are extraordinary." Emily looked at Lucas, then at the sunflower in his hand. It was her favorite flower, something he'd remembered from their childhood summers. She reached for it, her fingers brushing his as she took it. The touch sent a spark through her, a memory of trust, of safety. "What are you saying, Lucas?" she asked, her voice steadier now. He smiled, a little sheepish. "I'm saying I'm here. For you. Not to fix what happened, but to remind you who you are. And if you'll let me, I'd like to stick around this time." The church was silent, every eye on them. Emily's heart pounded, not with fear, but with something new, hope, fragile but growing. She looked at the faces around her, her mother, nodding slowly, Sarah, grinning through tears, the guests, some confused, others visibly moved. She thought of James, of the pain he'd caused, but also of the life she'd built despite her challenges. She was more than her wheelchair, more than this moment of rejection. And Lucas, standing here, saw that. "Father," Emily said, turning to the priest, her voice clear. "I think we're done here for today." The priest nodded, closing his prayer book. "Of course, my dear." Emily looked at Lucas. "Can we talk?" "Outside." He stood, offering his arm. "Lead the way." She wheeled herself down the aisle, Lucas walking beside her, the sunflower resting in her lap. The guests parted, some clapping softly, others wiping tears. As they reached the doors, sunlight spilled over them, warm and golden. Outside, the world felt different, brighter, somehow. They stopped under an oak tree, its leaves rustling in the breeze. Emily looked up at Lucas, her heart full of questions but also a quiet certainty. "Why did you really come back?" she asked. Lucas knelt again, his eyes level with hers. "Because I've loved you since we were kids, Em. I was too young, too scared to say it then. I thought I'd moved on, but I haven't. And when I heard you were marrying someone else, I realized I'd regret it forever if I didn't at least try to tell you." Emily's breath caught. She searched his face, seeing the boy she'd known and the man he'd become, someone who'd spent years helping others, who'd carried her memory across continents. She thought of the pain of James's rejection, but also of the strength she'd found in herself over the years. She wasn't defined by who left her, but by who stayed. "Lucas," she said, a smile breaking through her tears, "you're still terrible at timing." He laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Yeah, but I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Stay," she said simply. And in that moment, under the oak tree, with the sunflower bright between them, Emily felt something she hadn't in a long time, whole. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Emily's story spread, first through the town, then beyond, carried by whispers and social media. The image of her in her wedding gown, Lucas at her side, became a symbol of resilience, of love that sees beyond limitations. News outlets picked it up, calling it the wedding that wasn't, but became something more. Emily hated the attention, but she couldn't deny the warmth it brought, the messages from strangers who'd been touched by her courage. She and Lucas spent hours catching up, their old friendship rekindling with an ease that surprised her. He told her about his work in refugee camps, the lives he'd saved, the losses that haunted him. She shared her art, her teaching, the way she learned to navigate a world not built for her. They laughed over old memories and made new ones, painting together in her studio, his clumsy brushstrokes making her giggle. But the pain of James's rejection lingered. One evening, as they sat on her porch, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange, Emily admitted it. "I trusted him, Lucas. I thought he saw me. How do I trust again?" Lucas leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You trust by knowing you're enough, Em. You always have been. James didn't see that, but that's his loss. You don't need someone to complete you. You're already whole. Anyone who gets to love you is just lucky to be along for the ride." She smiled, her heart lighter. "You're still cheesy." "Guilty," he said, grinning. Months later, Emily stood, or rather, sat, at the front of her art gallery, her latest exhibit drawing a crowd. Her paintings, vibrant and bold, told stories of resilience, of beauty in broken places. Lucas was there, as always, his quiet presence a steady anchor. They weren't rushing into anything, no grand proposals, no hurried promises. But they were building something real, something rooted in trust and time. As the crowd mingled, a young girl in a wheelchair approached Emily, her eyes wide. "You're the artist, right? I saw your story online. I'm like you. I didn't think I could do stuff like this." Emily knelt her wheelchair closer, her voice soft. "You can do anything, sweetheart. It's not about what you can't do. It's about what you choose to create." The girl smiled, and Emily felt a warmth spread through her. She glanced at Lucas, who was watching her with that same look he'd had in the church: pride, love, certainty. She didn't need a wedding to feel complete. She had her art, her strength, her people. And now she had Lucas, not as a savior, but as a partner who saw her, truly saw her. The gallery lights dimmed, and Emily took a deep breath, the sunflower pinned to her dress catching the light. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. She was enough. And that was everything.